quite this, because this is just a crazy story. What do we know?
Well, we have a lot going on. I think for folks who are just catching up, there was a series of events that happened between Tuesday night into Wednesday midday where a lot suddenly started to change. I think it's easy to say that it really for us began this week when, based on multiple sources and bank documents that I had seen, we were reaching out to Ohtani's spokesperson to ask why there was a bank account with Shohei Ohtani's name on it that was sending wire transfers to a Southern California bookmaker, and an operation, I should say, run by a Southern California bookmaker. And that bookmaker and the operation around it, according to multiple sources, is currently under investigation by federal authorities in California. And so we wanted to understand, why is Ohtani's name on these wire transfers? I saw some of them. We had multiple sourcing telling us that at least $4.5 million had been sent from that bank account. So through a series of events that happened, and I'm going to cut to the chase. I get on the phone with Ippei Mitsuhara. He is Ohtani's longtime interpreter, and people characterize him as Ohtani's closest friend, that they have a bond as close as brothers, and that there's a story out there from some years ago that says that Mitsuhara spent more time with Ohtani than he did with his own wife. So these are two men that were very, very close to each other. And so he and I get on the phone, and I spend about 90 minutes on the phone with him. This was late Tuesday night. It was a couple of hours before the season opener between the Dodgers and the Padres, which was taking place in South Korea. So for Mitsuhara, it was the morning time in South Korea. It was a couple of hours before the game. And he tells me in that first, and it's important that people understand, this is what he first tells me. He tells me that they are his gaming debts, that he got in over his head, that this is what he first says, that he went to Ohtani and asked him to pay off the debts. Ohtani wasn't happy about it, but eventually offers to pay them. And following instructions that Mitsuhara had received and then relayed to Ohtani, logged into his computer and made the wire transfer payments. We begin, we don't begin. We're in the final stages of putting our story together Wednesday morning, midday, and we get a statement through Ohtani's spokesperson from Ohtani's attorneys saying that there has been a massive theft, and that they are turning it over to authorities. And we then, start making a bunch of phone calls to try to understand what has just happened. And of course, I call Mitsuhara, and he tells, and I frankly say, Ippei, did you lie to me last night? And he says yes. And he, through a series of questions and answers, tells me that Ohtani did not, this is the second conversation with Mitsuhara, he says he did not tell Ohtani about the gaming debts and that Ohtani did not make the payments.
That is a crazy story. I got to tell you. I mean, it reads crazy, but hearing you describe, the timeline of it makes it sound even more bizarre. So it kind of leads me to two quick follow-ups that I have to ask.
Yeah.
One,
yeah, of course.
What does Ippei make? $150,000 a year? I mean, he doesn't make millions of dollars a year, right?
That's a really so that's a really interesting question. We had sourcing that was, putting an interpreter's pay. Initially, we were hearing, a couple $100,000.
Okay.
I've had some of my colleagues hear, that some interpreters make $85,000-ish.
All right, but it's not enough money to get a $4.5 million credit line.
Well, I think it's hard for you and me to speculate on that because we don't operate bookmaking operations. At least I don't.
I don't either, for the
so,
record.
I can only work on what I've been told.
Okay.
And the one thing that has not been clawed back, or I should say the one thing, but, one of the things that has not been clawed back between the two interviews with Mitsuhara is that he was extended credit. This is what he told me. He was extended credit by the bookmaker that sources say is under investigation, and he never had to put any money up front, and he was allowed to continue to gamble.
Must have been a heck of a credit line that he was extended, which is pretty impressive. I guess the other question then becomes the dates on the transfers. How do those match up with either of his two stories, or do we not know enough yet?
Well, no. Thus far, let me just say this is an evolving story. Right. Mitsuhara did not spend as much time on the phone with me the second time we talked. It was a fairly short conversation, and was not giving me a lot of details. But so far, no one is debating that it was Mitsuhara who was placing the bets. And so, tell me what you really want me to get at here, because there's no debate over whether he was making the bets at this juncture, if that makes any sense.
Yes. No, I'm not sure what I was getting at, other than trying to. As you were talking, I was thinking, I wonder if the dates back up the fact that Shohei came in later and said, hey, I want to cover this for you. Did the dates back that up?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Forgive me. I have so much information in my brain right now. So what he is not debating, and what I don't have any reason to believe has changed at this point, is that the betting, according to Mitsuhara's first interview, began in 2021 after he meets this bookmaker at a poker game in San Diego at a hotel after they had played the Padres. And he begins placing the bets in 2021. Through 2022, he gets increasingly in over his head. He calls himself a terrible gambler. He is now beginning to really get in trouble by 2023. In his first version of the story, which he then recanted, he goes to Ohtani in 2023. However, the payments, according to my sourcing, that come out of the account that has the name Shohei Ohtani on it, were being made in 2023, and that jives with what Mitsuhara told me in that first interview. He was vague on dates, but I saw a wire transfer from September, and I saw a wire transfer from October.
Tisha,
I've been told there's more than what I saw.
Pardon me. Yeah, Tisha, what have you learned about the guy running the bookmaking operation and any sort of contact that he may or may not have had with Ohtani directly, or does it sound like that was all with Mitsuhara?
Okay, thank you for that, because I think it's really, really important that the lawyer representing the bookmaker says that the bookmaker never spoke or had contact with Ohtani. I've been told from multiple sources that the bookmaker only dealt with Mitsuhara.
So I've never made a lot of major wire transfers in my life. I don't roll quite that deep, but I've got friends who occasionally make wire transfers, and my understanding is you got to approve them verbally, right? Like they go through a bunch of different checks when you make a wire transfer. It's not just that you have to have the account and the routing number and all that, because obviously it's plausible that Ohtani could have given that to his interpreter. But how much do you know about just the way wire transfers are approved?
I'm not a banker. That is one of. So here's what I don't want to do. I don't want to speculate about what did and didn't happen. There are two people who you would think would know, and that's Ohtani and Mitsuhara. I will be interested to see if there are more people that begin to ask questions about that as Ohtani's lawyers said to us yesterday and have said to many people now through media outlets that there are allegations of massive theft, to use their words, and that they're sending it to the authorities. So those are the questions that we're trying to figure out ourselves.
Tisha, last question from me. I'm just curious, what has been the MLB's response so far, if any?
So there's not a ton of precedent for this. Unlike, say doping or drug use where, it's a pretty cut and dry, this is what happens if you get caught. With MLB, there's just not a lot of precedent for this. Obviously, everybody always talks about Pete Rose, but in this modern era of sports betting, there are rules. And my understanding of the rules, based on what a variety of people have told us, is, and you can look up what the rules are as well, is that you need not, if you're an athlete with MLB, you may not use a bookmaker. You cannot do that. You can't use a bookie. You may never bet on baseball. I mean, Pete Rose, right? Do not bet on baseball. But beyond baseball, if bookmaking is legal, my understanding is that athletes can do that. You can't use a bookie. You can't bet on baseball, but you can bet because it's now legal in sports bet, I should say. So we are very curious to know what's going to happen here. Mitsuhara got fired like instantly. I mean, it was fast. I think I got the statement and he'd been fired within just a couple of hours from getting the statement. And there's also, questions about what's happening with the federal investigation. And my understanding, based on the sourcing we have right now, is that MLB is closely following what the feds are doing and maybe taking their cues from what develops with the federal investigation. They want to know what the feds have, I suspect, is what's going on.
So let me ask you this final question. I know you got to run, and we do as well, and we really appreciate it. Just awesome work, and glad to make your acquaintance here on the air. I wish we'd, I'm sorry, it comes under these sort of weird circumstances, but
that's all right. It's what I do. I tend to meet people when, there's news like this.
I love it. What questions are you going to be asking next? Like, what information would you like to know? Right now, I'm really trying to figure out, when I'm not talking to you guys, what I'm trying to do is figure out which authorities have been contacted. We have a source close to what's going on with knowledge who told me yesterday when all of this was breaking that it's complicated because so many of the people that would be part of all of this are currently in South Korea. The Padres and the Dodgers just played their second game this morning if you're on Eastern time, and that game just concluded like an hour or two ago. Mm-hmm. So you've got the Dodgers organization there. You've got a lot of people, and I shouldn't say a lot of people, but you have people who are Ohtani's camp, the people that support him. I mean, he is a major league star. So he's got people. And then you have Ohtani and Mitsuhara, both also still in South Korea. So we're trying to figure that out. We're obviously following the federal investigation. It's important to mention the bookmaker has not been charged with anything that we are aware of at this point. We were told yesterday that neither Ohtani nor Mitsuhara have been asked any questions by federal authorities. So I just want to make sure that's all clear out there, that this investigation, we want to know what's going on, I think, as much as anybody. Crazy. What a story. Thank you so much. Let's stay in touch because as this story develops, something tells me there may be more to this story that will come out here over the course of the next few weeks.
I think I'll be reporting on this for a while.
Yeah, this is like the type of thing that, it's pretty awesome. Good for you. We appreciate it. Let's talk again. Thank you so much, Tisha.
Thank you for having me.
All right, there you go.
Thank you for having me.
There's Tisha Thompson from ESPN. She's the investigative reporter who broke this story, and pretty interesting. Now, I get it.